Welcome to this article on the wars in Afghanistan. Let's take a look at the different wars in Afghanistan. The conquest of Afghanistan by Alexander the Great started in 330 BC. Then came the Muslim conquest of Afghanistan from 637 to 709. Then we have the conquest of Afghanistan by the Mongol Empire in 13th century. Then we have the Mughal conquests in Afghanistan. Then we have the three Anglo-Afghan wars, which was the first involvement of the British Empire in Afghanistan via India. The Panch incident in 1885, which was the first major incursion into Afghanistan by the Russian Empire during the Great Game with Britain. The Afghan Civil War from 1928 to 1929. Then in the modern era, we have different conflicts. The 1973 Afghan coup with King Muhammad Zahir Shah overthrown. Then we have several Afghanistan conflicts from 1978 to the present. The Saur Revolution of 1978, which was a communist insurrection against the Republic of Afghanistan. The Soviet-Afghan War from 1979 to 1989, which was a war between the Afghan Mujahideen and Soviet Union following the Soviet military intervention in support of the Democratic Republic of the Afghanistan government. The First Afghan Civil War 1989 to 1992. The Second Afghan Civil War from 1992 to 1996, which was the expansion of the Taliban across most of Afghanistan and establishment of the Taliban ruled Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan in 1996. The Third Afghan Civil War 1996 to 2001, which led up to the 2001 United States-led invasion of Afghanistan, during which the Taliban controlled most of Afghanistan with the Northern Alliance controlling northern Afghanistan. Then we have the war in Afghanistan from 2001 till 2021 in multiple stages. The United States invasion of Afghanistan against the Taliban and Al Qaeda was the first stage. Combating the Taliban insurgency with International Security Assistance Force, a coalition of countries including all NATO members. This was the second stage. Resolute Support Mission post 2014 phase consisting of anti-insurgency operations against the Taliban, Al Qaeda, and ISIL. This was the third stage. The 2021 Taliban Offensive. The Taliban victory and fall of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. This was the fourth stage. Then we have the Panjshir conflict, a conflict between ruling Taliban militias and the rebels in Panjshir Valley. Let's take a look at the 2021 Taliban Offensive. The 2021 Taliban Offensive was the final major offensive by the Taliban and allied militant groups against the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and its allies that began on 1st May 2021, coinciding with the withdrawal of most of the United States and allied troops from Afghanistan, resulting in the de facto takeover of the country and the reinstatement of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Let's understand what the withdrawal of most of the United States and allied troops from Afghanistan meant. The United States Armed Forces were scheduled to be fully withdrawn from Afghanistan by 31st August 2021, concluding the Operation Freedom's Sentinel and NATO's Resolute Support Mission. The US and allied forces invaded and occupied the country in 2001 following the September 11 attacks, with the resulting war becoming the US's longest military engagement. On 29 February 2020, the US and the Taliban signed a peace agreement titled Agreement for Bringing Peace to Afghanistan, with provisions including the withdrawal of all regular American and NATO troops from Afghanistan. A Taliban pledge to prevent Al Qaeda from operating in areas under Taliban control, and talks between the Taliban and the government of the then Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. The deal was supported by China, Pakistan, and Russia and unanimously endorsed by the Nations Security Council. The Trump administration agreed to an initial reduction from 13,000 to 8,600 troops by July 2020, followed by a full withdrawal by 1st May 2021 if the Taliban kept its commitments. The Biden administration, however, said the US would not begin withdrawing until 1st May and would complete the withdrawal before 11 September, the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. On 8 July, Biden specified a US withdrawal deadline of 31st August. During the withdrawal, the US launched Operation Allies Refuge to airlift translators and selected Afghan citizens considered at risk of reprisals to the United States, where they will be temporarily housed by the US military while they complete their special immigrant visa requirements. The US Forces Afghanistan Forward was established as a successor command overseeing all US diplomatic, security, advisory, and counterterrorism personnel remaining in the country post withdrawal. However, following the fall of Kabul to the Taliban on 15th August, the operation expanded to evacuating all Americans, any eligible Afghans, and other NATO nationals. Biden considered extending the withdrawal deadline beyond 31st August. This is one of the major causes why the Taliban came into power so soon in August 2021 after the withdrawal of the United States. Let's take a look at how the Taliban offensive came into play. In the first 3 months of the offensive, the Taliban made significant advances in the countryside, increasing the number of districts controlled from 73 to 223. On 6th August, the Taliban launched an assault on the provincial capitals of Afghanistan, with most of the towns surrendering without a fight, and they captured all provincial capitals except Bazarak. On 15th August, the incumbent president Ashraf Ghani fled the country, and the Taliban captured the Afghan capital of Kabul. Thus, the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan's government fell. The Taliban's rapid takeover surprised many governments, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Russia. The Taliban victory has widespread domestic and international ramifications. Let's take a look at the background. In September 2020, over 5,000 Taliban prisoners, including 400 of whom were accused and convicted of major crimes such as murder, were released by the Afghan government as part of the Doha Agreement between the United States and the Taliban. According to Afghanistan's National Security Council, many of the released prisoners who were experts returned to the battlefield and strengthened the Taliban's hand. Let's take a look what was the Doha Agreement. The Doha Agreement of 2020, also known as the Agreement for Bringing Peace to Afghanistan, was a peace agreement signed between the United States and the Taliban on February 29, 2020, at the Sheraton Grand Doha in Doha, Qatar. The four-page agreement is published on the US State Department's website. The provisions of the deal include the withdrawal of all American and NATO troops from Afghanistan in return for a Taliban pledge to prevent Al Qaeda from operating in areas under Taliban control, as well as ongoing talks between the Taliban and the Afghan government. This is a picture. We have the US representative Zalmad Khalizad and Taliban representative Abdul Ghani Baradar signed the agreement in Doha, Qatar on February 29, 2020. The United States agreed to an initial reduction of its force from 13,000 to 8,600 by July 2020, followed by a full withdrawal within 14 months if the Taliban keeps its commitments. The United States also committed to closing 5 military bases within 135 days and expressed its intent to end economic sanctions on the Taliban by August 27, 2020. This deal was supported by China, Russia, and Pakistan, and unanimously endorsed by the UN Security Council, although it did not involve the government of Afghanistan. India welcomed the pact's acceptance by the Afghan government and people. Despite the peace agreement, insurgent attacks against Afghan security forces surged in the 45 days after the agreement. The Taliban conducted more than 4,500 attacks in Afghanistan, and more than 900 Afghan security forces were killed. Due to the reduction in the number of offensives against the Taliban casualties dropped to 610, down from about 1660 in the same period a year earlier. Let's take a look at the agreement. The intra-Afghan negotiations were scheduled to begin on March 10, 2020 in Oslo, Norway. The composition of the Afghan government negotiating team was not determined because the results of the 2019 Afghan presidential election were disputed. The deal required the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban prisoners by the start of the talks, in a prisoner exchange for 1,000 government soldiers held by the Taliban. The Afghan government was not a party to the deal, and on March 1st, Ghani stated that he would reject the prisoner exchange. He said, "The government of Afghanistan has made no commitment to free 5,000 Taliban prisoners. The release of prisoners is not the United States authority, but it is the authority of the government of Afghanistan." Ghani also stated that any prisoner exchange cannot be a prerequisite for talks, but must be a part of the negotiations. On March 2nd, a Taliban spokesperson stated that they were fully ready for the intra-Afghan talks, but that there would be no talks if about 5,000 of their prisoners were not released. He also said that the agreed upon period of reduction in violence was over and that operations against Afghan government forces could resume. The 2021 Taliban Offensive effectively gave the group full control over the country after Western troops had withdrawn. The provisions of the deal include the withdrawal of all American and NATO troops from Afghanistan, a Taliban pledge to prevent Al Qaeda from operating in areas under Taliban control, and talks between the Taliban and the Afghan government. The United States agreed to an initial reduction of its force level from 13,000 to 8,600 by July 2020, followed by a full withdrawal within 14 months if the Taliban kept its commitments. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg pledged to bring down NATO's numbers to about 12,000 from roughly 16,000 troops. The United States also committed to closing 5 military bases within 135 days and expressed its intent to end economic sanctions on the Taliban by August 27, 2020. Thank you for listening to the background and some of the causes of the war in Afghanistan and the rise of Taliban. For more such articles, install the UPSC Practice app from the App Store.